Hey friends, welcome back to College Sports Corner. I'm Barry. Hey, if you like college sports, this is really your week because we got football going on. We got basketball that started Tuesday. There's got some great games coming up this weekend. So let's get to it. We're gonna get to it with some news and headlines. But first, hey, if you like the show, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. Hit the little subscribe button there so you don't miss a thing. So let's get started with some news. All right. UConn hired Jim Mora. Remember the old UCLA coach Jim Mora? Well, they hired him as their new football coach. I guess he's going to start this upcoming season. I really don't see a new coach starting in the middle of the season, but I guess when you're desperate as UConn is, you might do that. But anyway, Jim Mora, new head coach at UConn. Georgia Star linebacker Adam Anderson was arrested on rape charges going back to an October 29th incident. He's been suspended from the team. They're probably going to miss him. Who knows what's going on there? I guess we'll have to wait till the trial to decide everything. But anyway, he's out for forever, I guess. Okay, this is crazy. Cal versus UCA game this weekend got canceled because of a COVID outbreak at Cal. I think last week it said Cal was without 20 players in their game last week. But I've seen reports from some credible reporters that Cal is 99% vaccinated against COVID. So, I don't know. Do what you want with that information. Wisconsin running back Chez Malusi, he's out for the rest of the season with a leg injury. So, hope you get better soon, Chez. Hope you can make it back if you got another year of eligibility. All right, basketball started Tuesday. They have some games Tuesday night, a few Wednesday night. I think they got one tonight. What we're going to do right now is while football and basketball are kind of colliding, we're going to concentrate on the top 25 in basketball. And here in a few weeks, when football's over in December, we're going to start hitting all the basketball teams. So in case you missed anything right now, here is your scores from the last night and Tuesday night. Villanova beat Mount St. Mary's 91-51. Ohio State beat Akron by 67-66. Kansas beat Michigan State 87-74. North Carolina beat Loyola Maryland 83-67. Oregon beat Texas Southern 83-66. Tennessee beat UT Martin 90-62. Houston beat Hofstra 83-75. Illinois loses to Jackson State 71-47. And I think Illinois was ranked 12, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there. So lost their first game. Arkansas beat Mercer 74-61. Memphis beat Tennessee Tech 89-65. Gonzaga, number one team in the land, beat Dixie State 97-63. Texas 92, Houston Baptist 48. Alabama 93, Louisiana Tech 64. Virginia, another ranked team, loses their first game to Navy 66-58. Duke beat Kentucky 79-71. UCLA beat Cal Bakersfield 95-58. Michigan 88, Buffalo 76. Florida State 105, Penn Quakers 70. UConn 99, Coastal Connecticut 48. Purdue 96, Bellarmine 67. Maryland 83, Quinnipiac 69. St. Bona beat Siena 75-47. And Auburn beat Morehead State 77-54. And tonight Maryland plays again. George Washington goes to Maryland. That is at 6:30 on Big Ten Network. All right, football, Tuesday's games. Miami of Ohio 45, Buffalo 18. Western Michigan 45, Akron 40. Ohio 34, Eastern Michigan 26. Wednesday, Northern Illinois 30, Ball State 29. Toledo 49, Bowling Green 17. And Central Michigan 54, and Kent State 30. All right, before we get into starting this weekend, we got a couple things here I found that are pretty interesting. FBS passing leaderboard. Number one is Bailey Zape from Western Kentucky, 37 touchdowns. From SMU, number two, Tanner Mordose, 34 touchdowns. Number three is Pittsburgh's Kenny Pickett, 29 touchdowns. Number four is Alabama's Bryce Young, 28 touchdowns. And number five, two people tied at number 5. Wake Forest Sam Hartman's got 27 touchdowns, and Virginia's Brennan Armstrong has 27 touchdowns. Okay, and Tuesday night between the two big games, basketball games, the CFP rankings came out. 1 Georgia, 2 Alabama, 3 Oregon, 4 Ohio State, 5 Cincinnati, 6 Michigan, 7 Michigan State, 8 Oklahoma, 9 Notre Dame, 10 Oklahoma State, 11 Texas A&M, 12 Wake Forest, 13 Baylor, 14 BYU, 15 Ole Miss. A lot of controversy about where some of the teams are. Yeah, you could probably argue about that, but I'm going to save my rant until championship weekend because, we can rant about this every day, all day long, so I'll save mine until then. Tonight, 7:30 Eastern, ESPN, North Carolina 5-4 at Pitt 7-4. North Carolina's averaging 490 total yards. Pitt's averaging 541 total yards. Sam Howell from North Carolina has 2,408 passing yards and 20 touchdowns. And Ty Chandler has rushed for 884 yards and 18 touchdowns. Kenny Pickett, we mentioned him a while ago. He's just phenomenal, 3,171 passing yards. He's only thrown 3 interceptions this whole year. And then Jordan Addison has 986 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns for Pittsburgh. Tomorrow night at 6 Eastern on ESPN2, Cincinnati 9-0 at South Florida 2-7. Cincinnati looking to make a better showing than they did last week. They are averaging 409 total yards. South Florida 362 total yards. Desmond Ridder, quarterback for Cincinnati, 2,121 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. That's not too bad. Jerome Ford has rushed for 884 yards and 15 touchdowns this year for the Bearcats. South Florida running back Jaron Mangham has 13 rushing touchdowns so far. Got a late one on Friday night, so if you want to stay up late on Friday night and drink some beer and watch some football, 9 p.m. Eastern on FS1, Wyoming 5-4 at Boise State 5-4. Wyoming's averaging 348 total yards. Boise State 382 total yards. Quarterback Hank Brockmeyer for the Broncos, 2,486 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. All right, Saturday, your pregame. Game day will be at Texas A&M Ole Miss, SEC Nation, Georgia, Tennessee. That's probably going to be a pretty good game. Fox Big Noon Kickoff, Oklahoma, Baylor, another pretty good game. Big Ten Tailgate, I can't find anything yet. I imagine they're going to be somewhere, but I just didn't see it. Noon Eastern on ACC Network, UConn 1-8, Clemson 16-3. UConn's averaging 282 yards, Clemson 330 yards. UConn averages 113 rushing yards and 169 passing yards per game. Clemson averages 148 rushing yards and 182 passing yards per game. Noon Eastern on ESPN Plus, Houston 8-1 at Temple 3-6. Cougars average 409 total yards. Temple averages 306 total yards. Clayton Tune for Houston, 2,224 passing yards and 19 touchdowns. Alton McCaskill has 603 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns this year. Temple averages 113 rushing yards and 193 passing yards. All right, noon Eastern on FS1, West Virginia 4-5, and Kansas State 6-3. West Virginia averages 374 total yards. Kansas State averages 379 total yards. Quarterback for West Virginia, Derek Doge, 2,180 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. Letty Brown has rushed for 667 yards and 11 touchdowns. And running back for Kansas State, Deuce Vaughn, has rushed for 854 yards and 12 touchdowns this season. Noon Eastern on Big Ten Network, Rutgers 4-5 at Indiana 2-7. Rutgers average 138 rushing yards, 190 passing yards, 327 total yards. And Indiana averages 123 rushing yards, 189 passing yards, and 312 total yards. Noon Eastern on ABC, Michigan 8-1 at Penn State 6-3. Michigan averages 451 total yards. Penn State averages 384 total yards. Cade McNamara from Michigan, 1,667 passing yards, 9 touchdowns. Hassan Haskins 829 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns for Michigan. For Penn State, Sean Clifford's got 2,371 passing yards and 16 touchdowns. Jahan Dotson has 932 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. Noon Eastern on ESPN2, Northwestern 3-6 and Wisconsin 6-3. Northwestern's averaging 150 rushing yards, 191 passing yards, and 342 total yards. The Badgers average 203 rushing yards, 156 passing yards, and 378 total yards. Noon Eastern on ESPN Plus. Samford versus Florida. Samford is 4-5. Florida is 4-5. Samford is averaging 452 total yards. Florida is averaging 467 total yards. Samford has a better passing game, but Florida has a better rushing game. These teams are pretty even in the stats, and the way Florida's playing right now, wouldn't that be something that Samford beat them? And if Samford was to beat Florida, would that be it? Would Dan Mullen be done by Saturday night? That would be a pretty interesting situation if that happens. Noon Eastern on SEC Network. Got a tough one here, Bama. Y'all have got it. Man, this could be a trap game. New Mexico State 1-8 at Alabama 8-1. Aggies are averaging 379 total yards. Alabama is averaging 473 total yards. Mexico State averages 100 rushing yards a game and 278 passing yards. Bryce Young for Bama, 2,755 yards, 28 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Brian Robinson Jr., 724 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. So watch out, Todd. You better watch it on this one. Noon Eastern on ESPN. Mississippi State 5-4 at Auburn 6-3. Mississippi State averages 432 total yards. Auburn 427 total yards. Will Rogers for Mississippi State, 3,307 yards, 23 touchdowns. Bulldogs only average 56 rushing yards a game, so it's all through the air, that Mike Leach air raid, I guess. Bo Nix has 1,917 yards and 9 touchdowns. Noon Eastern on Fox, Oklahoma 9-0 at Baylor 7-2. Oklahoma averages 477 total yards. Baylor 457 total yards. Spencer Rattler for Oklahoma, 1,439 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Kennedy Brooks, 802 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns for the Sooners. Bear quarterback Jerry Bohannon, 1,999 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this year. Abram Smith has rushed for 1,023 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. Noon Eastern on ESPNU, Central Florida 6-3 at SMU 7-2. Central Florida averages 405 total yards. SMU averages 484 total yards. Mikey Keene for Central Florida, 1,089 yards and 12 touchdowns. We mentioned Tanner Modosu a while ago. 2,887 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And Downey Gray has 780 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns for the Mustangs. Noon Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Bucknell 1-8 at Army 5-3. Bucknell averages 82 rushing yards a game, 124 passing yards a game, and 206 total yards a game. Probably a big reason why they're 1-8. Army averages 286 rushing yards, 104 passing yards, and 390 total yards per game. Noon Eastern on CSS, I guess that's Comcast Sports. Syracuse 5-4 at Louisville 4-5. Syracuse averages 415 total yards. Louisville averages 442 total yards. Garrett Schrader for Syracuse, 1,119 yards and 7 touchdowns. Sean Tucker has 1,267 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. Louisville quarterback Malik Cunningham has 2,077 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, and he has 690 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. Pretty impressive. Noon Eastern on ESPN Plus. East Carolina 5-4 at Memphis 5-4. Pirates have 430 total yards a game, and Memphis averages 463 total yards a game. Pirate quarterback Holden Authors, 2,185 yards and 14 touchdowns. Kellyon Mitchell, 902 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns this year. Memphis quarterback Seth Hennigan, 2,545 yards this year, 18 touchdowns. Brandon Thomas has 661 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. And Calvin Austin III has 989 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. So got a lot of yardage guys there. Let's see here. We got noon Eastern on the Flow one, FLOF. I guess that's a streaming service. I still have never figured out what it is. Maine Black Bears 4-5 at UMass 1-8. Maine averages 321 total yards a game. UMass averages 291 total yards a game. Black Bear quarterback Derek Robertson has 1,506 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Brady Olson for UMass, 1,040 yards and 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions to match that. 2 p.m. Eastern on Pac-12 Network. Utah 6-3 at Arizona 1-8. Arizona coming off that first win of the season. Good for them. Utes average 435 total yards a game. The Wildcats average 353 total yards a game. Cameron Rising for Utah, 1,458 passing yards, 12 TDs, 2 interceptions. Tavion Thomas has 742 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns. Arizona only averages 137 rushing yards per game and 215 passing yards per game. Probably another reason why this team is 1-8. 2 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus, Western Kentucky 5-4 at Rice 3-6. Hilltoppers average 513 total yards a game. Rice is averaging 150 rushing yards, 187 passing yards, and 337 total yards. And Western Kentucky, once again, this guy, Bailey Zape, 3,688 yards, 37 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. It's hard to believe they're 5-4 with quarterback play like that. I mean, this is weird how things work in the sport of college football. 2 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus, Georgia State 4-5 at Coastal Carolina 8-1. Georgia State averages 376 total yards per game. Coastal Carolina averages 498 total yards. Darren Granger for Georgia State, 1,022 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And Grayson McCall for Coastal Carolina, 2,063 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. It's pretty impressive. 2:30 Eastern on ESPN Plus. South Alabama 5-4 at Appalachian State 7-2. South Alabama averages 388 total yards. Appalachian State averages 464 total yards. Jake Bentley for South Alabama, 2,122 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They average 135 rushing yards per game and 253 passing yards a game. Chase Bryce for Appalachian State, 2,261 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They average 201 rushing yards a game and 263 passing yards a game. 3 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. Georgia Southern 2-7, Texas State 3-6. Georgia Southern averages 215 rushing yards, 145 passing yards, and 360 total yards a game, where Texas State averages 147 rushing yards, 201 passing yards, and 348 total yards per game. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN. This used to be a big-ass game almost every year it seemed like, but these last few years it's kind of going, yeah. Miami 5-4 at Florida State 3-6. Miami averages 454 total yards. Florida State 378 total yards. Tyler Van Dyke for Miami, 1,877 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Jordan Travis for Florida State, 812 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Remember the good old days when these two teams would play? They would both be ranked in the top 5. And a lot of years Florida State would lose by a field goal that either went wide left or wide right. Man, those were the days, weren't they? And the mighty have fallen. 3:30 Eastern on CSS, Comcast Sports. Boston College 5-4 at Georgia Tech 3-6. Boston College averages 355 total yards, 162 rushing yards, 193 passing yards. Georgia Tech averages 409 total yards, 178 rushing yards, 231 passing yards per game. 3:30 Eastern, ACC Network. Duke 3-6 at Virginia Tech 4-5. Duke averages 445 total yards. Va Tech averages 337 total yards. Gunnar Holmberg for Duke, 2,034 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Mateo Durant rushes for 1,054 yards this year and 9 touchdowns. Va Tech quarterback Braxton Burmeister, 1,495 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. 3:30 Eastern on BTN Network. Minnesota 6-3 at Iowa 7-2. Both teams had bigger and better plans this year, but things just haven't worked out in their way. Gophers averaged 361 total yards. Hawkeyes 299 total yards. Minnesota averages 207 rushing yards and 154 passing yards a game, where Iowa averages 114 rushing yards and 185 passing yards. 3:30 Eastern on ABC. Purdue 6-3 at Ohio State 8-1. Purdue looking to knock off another team upset. Boilermakers 408 total yards a game. Ohio State 542 total yards a game. Purdue quarterback Adrian O'Connell, 2,087 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. C.J. Stroud for the Buckeyes, 2,675 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. And then Travion Henderson has rushed for 937 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns. 3:30 Eastern on Stadium. Charlotte 5-4, and Louisiana Tech 2-7. Chris Reynolds for Charlotte, 1,829 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Austin Kendall for Louisiana Tech, 1,874 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. This one ought to be pretty good. 3:30 Eastern, CBS, Georgia 9-0 at Tennessee 5-4. People saying, Tennessee 5-4, why is that good? Because Tennessee's been playing some damn good football these last few weeks, that's why. Georgia averages 430 total yards. Tennessee 458 total yards. Stetson Bennett for Georgia, 1,412 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Zamir White has 9 rushing touchdowns, and Brock Bowers 6 receptions for touchdowns. Hendon Hooker for Tennessee, 1,894 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. As good as Tennessee's playing, I'm not so sure they're that good enough to beat Georgia, but you have a few good luck things go your way, a few turnovers. I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee ended up winning this game. It wouldn't surprise me because of the way they're playing. So I don't expect them to, but it would not surprise me if they did. All right, 3:30 Eastern, ESPN2. Iowa State 6-3 at Texas Tech 5-4. Cyclones average 434 total yards. Red Raiders 431 total yards. Brock Purdy for Iowa State, 2,085 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Breece Hall has 1,121 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns. Henry Colombi from Texas Tech, 1,291 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Cedric Thomas, 8 rushing touchdowns for Texas Tech. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN3. Florida International 1-8 at Middle Tennessee 4-5. Florida International 402 total yards. Middle Tennessee 342 total yards. Florida International's Max Bartenschlager, 2,469 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, not too bad. And on the other hand, Chase Cunningham from Middle Tennessee, 1,318 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, not too bad either. 3:30 Eastern on CBS Sports Network. UAB 6-3 and Marshall 6-3. Could be a good one. UAB's averaging 386 total yards. Marshall 497 total yards. Dylan Hopkins for UAB, 1,473 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Dwayne McBride has 8 rushing touchdowns, and Garrett Prince has 7 receptions for touchdowns. Grant Wells for Marshall, 2,861 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, but 11 interceptions to match that. But Rasheen Ali, 898 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns. Good for him. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus. Louisiana 8-1 at Troy 5-4. Louisiana averages 428 total yards. Troy's averaging 353 total yards. Levi Lewis for Louisiana, 1,942 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Chris Smith has 660 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. Taylor Powell for Troy, 1,239 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. 3:30 Eastern on ESPN Plus. Florida Atlantic 5-4 and Old Dominion 3-6. Florida Atlantic's N'Kosi Perry, 2,043 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Old Dominion averages 182 rushing yards and 195 passing yards per game. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus. Southern Miss 1-8, UTSA 9-0. Southern Miss averages 252 yards a game, and UTSA averages 455 yards a game. Southern Miss only averages 90 rushing yards and 162 passing yards a game. Another big reason this team is 1-8. Frank Harris for UTSA has 2,079 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and Sincere McCormick, 1,060 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. All for Roadrunners. 4 p.m. Eastern, SEC Network. South Carolina 5-4 and Missouri 4-5. South Carolina coming off that big win against Florida. They're averaging 344 total yards, and Missouri is averaging 434 total yards. South Carolina averages 138 rushing yards and 205 passing yards. Connor Bozniak from Missouri, I guess that's how you say it. 2,130 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And Tyler Bodie, 1,038 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns for the Tigers. 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Maryland 5-4 at Michigan State 8-1. Maryland averages 430 total yards a game. Spartans are averaging 446 total yards. Tallulah has passed for 2,755 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Peyton Thorne for Michigan State, 2,173 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And Kenneth Walker has rushed for 1,340 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. Hawaii screwed us this week. They're going inland to play. 4 p.m. Eastern, no TV. Hawaii 4-6 at UNLV 1-8. UNLV coming off their first win of the season. Hawaii's averaging 400 total yards a game, and UNLV 297 total yards. Hawaii averages 150 rushing yards, 250 passing yards per game. UNLV averages 101 rushing yards, 195 passing yards per game. I'm telling you right now, we need to get some kind of executive order from the Oval Office or make it Congress to make it a rule that Hawaii plays all their games at home and plays them all at night so we can all stay up till 2, 3 in the morning drinking beer and watching college football. That would just be the greatest damn thing in this country, wouldn't it? All right, 4 p.m. Eastern, ESPNU. Tulsa 3-6 at Tulane 1-8. Tulsa's averaging 441 total yards. Tulane averaging 375 total yards. Davis Brin for Tulsa, 2,244 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Michael Pratt for Tulane, 1,745 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the year. 4 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. UTEP 6-3 and North Texas 3-6. UTEP is averaging 392 total yards a game, and North Texas 422 total yards a game. The Miners also average 155 rushing yards and 237 passing yards, where the Mean Green average 228 rushing yards and 194 passing yards per game. 5 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. Arkansas State 1-8 and Louisiana Monroe 4-5. Arkansas State averages 385 total yards. La Monroe averages 326 total yards. Lane Hatcher for Arkansas State, has 1,429 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Corey Rucker has rushed for 625. No, Corey Rucker has 625 receiving yards and 8 touchdown catches. Chandler Rogers for Law Monroe, 1,224 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. 5:30 Eastern, Pac-12 Network. Samford 3-6 at Oregon State 5-4. Stanford averages 322 total yards. Oregon State 441 total yards. Stanford only averages 91 rushing yards a game, but they average 231 passing yards. Oregon State averages 230 rushing yards and 211 passing yards. 7 p.m. Eastern, FS1. Arizona State 6-3 at Washington 4-5. Sun Devils average 430 total yards a game. Huskies average 332 total yards a game. Jaden Daniels for Arizona State, 1,879 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Rashawn White, 685 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. Dylan Morris for Washington, 1,920 yards, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Sean McGrew, 8 rushing touchdowns. And like we talked about it a couple days ago, Washington's going to be out without Coach Lake for slapping or hitting a player on the sideline in the head and then shoving him on the sideline. So he's going to be suspended for this game without pay. I'm being a Washington fan. I ain't saying nothing else about that. Not like he would help, probably. I mean, look at 4-5 and shit. 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN 2. Kentucky 6-3, and Vanderbilt 2-7. Kentucky averages 393 total yards. Vandy 301 total yards. Will Levis for Kentucky, 1,848 yards, 17 touchdowns, 10 interceptions to go along with it. Vanderbilt averages 117 rushing yards, 184 passing yards. They need to get all that crap fixed. They want to be competitive in the SEC. 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN, Texas A&M 7-2, and Ole Miss 7-2. A&M averages 398 total yards a game. Ole Miss 524 total yards a game. Zach Calzada for A&M, 1,556 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Matt Corral has 2,527 yards, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He has 528 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. And being an Aggie fan, being at College Station is just 45 minutes up the road for me. I really don't expect the Aggies to win this game. They play good, but I just think Ole Miss has got too much for them. So, anyway, hey, you never know. Good luck, Aggies. I'm not pulling for you. 7 p.m. Eastern, CBS Sports Network. Air Force 6-3 at Colorado State 3-6. Air Force averages 396 total yards, 302 rushing yards, 94 passing yards. Colorado State averages 164 rushing yards and 234 passing yards a game. All right, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Stadium. New Mexico 3-6. Fresno State 7-3. Lobos average 259 total yards. Bulldogs average 468 total yards. Terry Wilson for New Mexico, 1,054 passing yards, only 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Jake Haener for Fresno State, 3,167 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Jalen Cooper, 710 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns for Fresno State. I keep saying this year is the year of the kicker and the quarterback. Because you got a lot of damn good quarterbacks and a lot of damn good kickers. So 2021 is the year of the kicker and the quarterback. Isn't that crazy shit? 7:30 Eastern, ABC, Notre Dame 8-1, and Virginia 6-3. Notre Dame's averaging 394 total yards. Virginia's averaging 545 total yards. Jake Cohn for Notre Dame, 1,879 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Kyrie Williams, 802 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. Brendan Armstrong for Virginia, 3,557 yards. Is that right? Wow. 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I have to double check that. I don't know if that seems like a lot, but I don't know. I might have miswrote something down, but it seems like a lot of yards. Dontayvion Wicks, 972 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. 7:30 Eastern on ACC Network. NC State 7-2 and Wake Forest 8-1. This should be a pretty good game. Devin Leary for NC State, 2,475 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Sam Hartman, 2,867 yards, 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And Christian Smith has 7 rushing touchdowns for Wake Forest, and Jaquari Robertson has 8 receiving yards. NC State averages 415 total yards a game, and Wake Forest 509. Yeah, this might be a pretty good game to watch on Saturday night. 7:30 Eastern, ACC Network. 7:30 Eastern on SEC Network. Arkansas 6-3 and LSU 4-5. Arkansas averaging 457 total yards. LSU averaging 372. KJ Jefferson for the Razorbacks, 1,848 yards, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Treylon Bucks, 799 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. And then for LSU, Max Johnson, 2,169 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So if the NC State Wake Forest game isn't that good or gets out of hand on one side or the other, even though LSU's 4-5, the Arkansas LSU game's got battle with some good quarterbacks. 7:30 Eastern on ESPNU. Kansas 1-8 at Texas 4-5. Kansas averages 138 rushing yards, 168 passing yards, 306 total yards. Texas averages 202 rushing yards, 219 passing yards, 421 total yards. And if you remember a few weeks ago, Kansas gave Oklahoma a hell of a game, almost beat them. Texas is not on the level of Oklahoma, and they've actually been on a downhill slide. So, can Kansas get its second win of the season in Austin? Boy, just think about how people will be feeling about Sarkisian after that. You know, at the beginning of the year, he was our guy. Even after the Arkansas lost, when they went on that winning streak, oh, he's our guy, he's going to be great. And now they're just on a downhill skid the last few weeks. 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. TCU 4-5 and Oklahoma State 8-1. TCU averages 451 total yards. Oklahoma State 382 total yards. Max Duggan for TCU, 1,667 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And Spencer Sanders for the Cowboys, 1,523 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. All right, I got a few late games here for us. Nothing like Hawaii could give us, but hey, it's late college football. That's cool. 9 p.m. Eastern, Pac-12 Network. Colorado 3-6. The UCLA 5-4. Colorado averages 132 rushing yards, 135 passing yards, and 267 total yards. UCLA averages 200 rushing yards, 216 passing yards, 416 total yards. Remember the beginning of the year when UCLA whipped up on Hawaii and beat LSU? Everybody was all over UCLA, and now here they are in November sitting at 5-4. The talk has kind of stopped. 10:30 Eastern. Here we go. FS1. Utah State 7-2. San Jose State 5-5. Utah State averages 473 total yards. San Jose State 361 total yards. Logan Bonner for Utah State, 2,486 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Devin Tompkins, 1,314 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. San Jose State is averaging 137 rushing yards and 224 passing yards, which is crazy. And they're 5-5. And if I remember right, I might be wrong, they won the Mountain West Conference last year. Or maybe it was the year before, but either way, they've kind of fallen off the map here. 10:30 Eastern, ESPN. Washington State 5-4, Oregon 8-1. Cougars are averaging 376 total yards. Ducks 443 total yards. Jaden DeLora for Washington State, 1,973 passing yards, 17 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Anthony Brown for Oregon, 1,895 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Travis Dye, 820 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns for the Ducks. And then your last one that's going to keep you up late at night, 10:30. This is This one here is going to be worth staying up for. If you drink too much beer and you find yourself passing out in the middle of a Hawaii game, don't drink as much and watch this one because this one's going to be good. 10:30 Eastern, CBS Sports Network. Nevada 7-2 at San Diego State 8-1. Both these teams are here tied for first in the Mountain West Conference West Division. So the winner's going to take over first place. Wolfpack are averaging 447 total yards. Aztecs 329 total yards. Carson Strong from Nevada, 3,197 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. But they average 70 rushing yards, but 376 passing yards. So they make up for it. San Diego State averages, this is crazy. This crazy stat. San Diego State averages 192 rushing yards and only 137 passing yards. But yet they're 8-1. So I don't know, man. Like I said, college football is crazy. But yeah, I mean, the winner's going to be first place in the West Division of the Mountain West. So hell yeah, stay up late and watch that one. It ought to be good. All right, hey, that's it. What's that? Today's Thursday. Man, we got one more freaking day till the weekend. We can get through this shit and the rest of today and tomorrow. Usually Fridays are a breeze. So one more day till the weekend till we can relax and enjoy football, enjoy the other things we do. So till next week, be careful, be safe, enjoy your football. Tell your friends and family about this channel. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything. And y'all have a great and safe weekend, and we'll see you back next week.